What without like giving away too much, because obviously this is kind of your bread and butter. But like, what do you guys kind of do with men's circles? Like, what do you? Because it's obvious, like when you say like you're like I've seen you do like hikes and such.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a little bit more like evident. You're like, okay, you're just kind of like facilitating a place. But like when it's in a bit more of like an intimate setting, like when you're in an apartment, like what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. And yeah, just to go back to your first point of like the camping experience and all that, like it's like this community is like ever evolving. So it's I couldn't even tell you what it's going to be, but currently what it is um, essentially again it's like a space for men to show up. So in an intimate setting. There's a little bit of structure, but it's also like very free flowing. So typically we start with a meditation for about 10 minutes. We do some introductions for anyone who's new, and then typically there's a theme. There's a weekly theme. So I'll bring in the theme of the week, and we'll kind of I'll almost ask the same question every time. Like, how does this theme, for example, if we're talking about procrastination, how does procrastination show up in your life now? And then it's like unbelievable the amount of magic that happens just in that one question, because you get one person to share, and then someone will be able to relate to that, and then someone else will start sharing, and then next thing you know, like an hour's gone by and we've barely touched the surface. So and then the other aspect of the theme is what are ways that you've overcome procrastination, or what's helped you in your life. So now, not only are we talking, like, are we getting deep in how it's affected us, but also we're now able to learn from each other and what helps us overcome whatever that theme is, whatever that struggle is. Like, how can we support each other in this space and overcoming it? And it's so that's kind of the structure, and then we leave it with if there's any immediate shares, or if there's a need for immediate support, we'll leave space at the end of the 2 hours, and then we'll close out with like sharing of gratitude, and most importantly, we close out by going around the circle and saying one thing you love about yourself. And me being in this industry for a little bit now, one thing I've noticed is that men struggle to talk about themselves, and they struggle to like highlight things they like about themselves. Like we're so used to criticizing and judging and shaming ourselves, but we don't do the opposite, right? We don't necessarily find ways to like truly love ourselves and find reasons why we love ourselves. So we always close it out with some self-love. So yeah, that's what one circle looks like.
That's wicked, man.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting to think about that in terms of, I like the idea of like different themes. I like that idea. Just having some sort of a prompt of, even as you were saying that, I'm thinking in my head, like, what are some ways that I procrastinate? And then you said the second part, and I was like, there's a lot of different ways. It's weird how different areas of your life are more prone to certain things like that. Like, even just with procrastination, there's like certain things where, with your fitness, you procrastinate less, but with your business, you procrastinate more. Or like apologizing, obviously, something that you procrastinate a lot with, or I should say I do, but it's like it's weird how there's different. I only say that because a lot of the times there's like certain ways where people will be like, "Oh, you're so disciplined," and I'm like, "Yeah, with this, because it's something that I don't mind doing."
Yeah,
like fitness or something like that, for example. Like it's like, yeah, because I love working out.
Yeah.
So of course, it's not really discipline at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point in your life as well, right? There's so many factors. It's like, yes, I'm disciplined with fitness because I'm passionate about it at this point in my life, but I wasn't always disciplined in it.
Right.
And that's just one thing that I am disciplined in, but there's other areas that need to get done, but maybe I struggle more because there's less passion. Maybe there's more like negative self-talk when it comes to that thing that you're trying to be consistent with. So there's like so many factors to consistency. Yeah.
So how long have you been in this kind of line of work?
Ooh, I'm still a baby, man. I've been in it for just over a year. So I graduated. I like changed my career from law enforcement to counseling. And I did that when I moved to Vancouver 3 years ago. I went back to school to become a counselor, and I graduated May 2023, so just over a year ago. And I've been incredibly passionate about it since moving to Vancouver and getting into this industry, and that passion is just like it's becoming larger and larger. The more I'm learning about myself, and the more I'm able to support other men. So I've been facilitating the men's circle since July of last year, but I also I'm a counselor, so I support men one-on-one, and I also teach mental health as well in a school. So I'm like heavily involved in this industry.
That's cool, man. What does it look like in a school setting? What does that look like?
So I graduated at a school called Rhodes Wellness College. It's like a private school, private college downtown Vancouver, and they have a different way of education. They call it experimental, experiential style teaching. So essentially how it looks is you're going into school every single day, and you are learning how to counsel or provide therapy to your classmates, and you're also getting therapy and getting counseled by your classmates. So you're going in with your real life shit. So you're showing up, and you're processing every single day. It's like getting therapy every day for 18 months. So you're learning like what your values are. You're learning, areas of your life where you shame yourself. You're learning what your core beliefs and limiting beliefs are. You're learning how to have healthy communication. You're learning how to set boundaries, and so on and so forth. So that's what it's like from a student's perspective, and then from a teacher's perspective, which I'm now in. It's essentially that. It's like supporting students in not only learning the material, but also how to embody it themselves. And like there's a saying in counseling and in therapy and in psychology that you can only take your client as far as you've taken yourself.
Wow.
Which is like, very profound and also true, right? Like a lot of your stuff will come up in session with a client if you haven't processed it yourself. So Rhodes's philosophy is like, you got to work on yourself before you can help someone work on them.
Yeah. That's really cool. It is interesting to think about that. That's it's cool to have that kind of practice as well. Like, so it's kind of at the exact same time you're teaching and getting taught, or you're counseling and getting counseled.
At
the exact same time.
Yeah. As a student, you're constantly working on yourself.
Dude, that must be exhausting.
Yes.
Because I know, even surprise, but like obviously I've done quite a bit of like therapy and counseling as well. And I know even at like the cadence of like once a week, whenever I'm firing, like I have a steady once a week kind of thing, the rest of my week I'm looking at it through the lens of like, am I doing this thing because of this? Am I doing that because of that? Like, is this thought pattern? I'm like constantly analyzing. Like, it's like almost, I could only imagine, dude, if I did that every day, my brain would never shut off.
Yeah. And I mean, that's essentially like we're just overthinkers in general. And then you add in like all of these new things that you're learning about yourself, your own psyche, your own mental health, your own childhood, and how that affects who you are today. For sure, it's gonna take a huge toll on you, which again, something that Rhodes and just therapy in general harps on is self-care, right? So it's like these are all the ways you're processing your trauma, and now you need to also care for yourself while you're processing it, right? So they really push for like for a healthy work-life balance. Self-care is so important. So important.
What do you think are like kind of the most paramount things if someone's sitting there and they're like, I need to fucking improve my life right now? Like, what are kind of like your first things that you start to look at if someone's like, what does even self-care mean? Does that mean face masks and a bottle of wine and 4 hours of Netflix of watching The Office, or like what is that? What
Yeah.
is self
I
care?
love The Office, by the way. It's a great show.
I do too. That's why I
Uh,
said that.
yeah, one of my favorite answers to any question is it depends,
Right.
right? So, I mean, there are like fundamental things that you can do for your self care, like meditation, physical fitness.
What's for you? What's your like? If I were to jump into your
Yeah,
brain and body, and I was like, hey, how do I feel the best today? What would you say?
yeah. What are the ways to help me feel the best?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like self care. Meditation. I have a pretty rigorous meditative practice. Um, Working out, some form of movement. And again, like the reason it depends is because for everyone it's individual, right?
Hmm.
It all depends on who they are, and I've learned that movement is so important to me. So
Yep.
like that's a form of therapy when I'm able to move. I also what's important to me is connection, being able to connect with the people around me. Um, uh, Being out in nature, like daily, ensuring that there's I'm able to be out in nature, reminding myself to slow down, like positive self-talk. I, like when I get in my head, sometimes those thoughts can be negative, and then it can be unconscious, and you don't realize it. So
Hmm.
positive self-talk is so important. Um,
Are you a structured? Do you have like a very structured
no,
life, or you
no,
go with the flow kind of guy?
I'm completely go with the flow. So we're currently learning how to be more structured.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
on the other side of that spectrum,
you're
dude.
fully structured.
Yeah,
Like,
it's funny how you said that. It's so
mm,
like unique and specific because
yeah,
the very first thing that came to my head was like rigidity.
yeah.
Like I am like that. Like I need a set structure. If things aren't going to plan, I'm like, why did I have this weird pit in my stomach?
Okay. So
Uh,
yeah, you're like
I'm the opposite of you
attached to like
that way.
a schedule.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and that's why it depends, right? That's why
yeah, yeah,
it really depends. So for someone like you, maybe, um, maybe what might be self care to you is finding balance in your life, and that might be like letting go of certain rigidities in your life, letting go of a schedule.
yeah,
Whereas for me, I'm like, I need to learn to be more rigid and to be able to follow a schedule a little bit more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
weird. It's funny because I've had to make it a practice this year where
Mm-hmm.
it's like I have to think about having a day of rest. Like I do. It's hard for me to turn off,
Mm.
and it's like I said, like I feel anxious and like kind of just not myself if I'm not like I have to wake up at the same time, go to bed at the same time, eat
Mm.
around the same time,
Okay.
like I'm just like work out at the same time. Just
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like personally, I think it's something again, it's in my own head where it's like I think that if I can just normalize my circadian rhythm, I'll
Mm.
feel better, which is
Mm.
obviously probably true,
Yeah.
but it's also just like something I think about too much. You know
Okay.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
if I have one of those days where I've like purposely tried to do this now where I'm like, okay, even if I have to work like 12-hour days, I
Mm-hmm.
need to have one day a week where I literally plan nothing, like no work, no nothing,
Uh-huh.
and just chill out, play some video games,
Mm-hmm.
stretch,
Mm-hmm.
read, like just no need to plan what I'm doing. And it's hard for me. Like
Yeah.
all day I do those. Like yesterday was that day.
Mm-hmm.
I like feel weird and guilty. I'm like, why do I feel weird and guilty about just
Yeah.
chilling out? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Giving yourself permission to relax.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's weird how everyone's so unique that way. Like it's, and I wasn't like that always. I think it's always like I think it's that knee jerk reaction thing that we kind of go
Mm-hmm.
through it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if like everyone goes through it the same way, but for me it was like in my early years of life, and I say early up until like 4 or 5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
there was no structure. And I was just like, I kind of got a lot of second chances.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while, I was like, okay, I need militant like structure, and
Okay.
now I'm like kind of bouncing back off that.
Okay. So it sounds like you like almost went from one extreme to the next.
That's how I roll, dude.
Yeah.
That's how I roll.
There's no gray area in your life.
Not at all. No. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned second chances, and in your life you were like just go with the flow, and I guess that you didn't like where that left you.
Yeah, I'd say a better way to say it is I'm always full throttle, and then
Okay.
before there was just like no control of the wheel.
Oh
And
shit.
you know what I mean? Like it
Mhm.
was just like I was like a golden retriever. I think I still am, but I'm more selective with who I'm
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
because I just feed off the people around me, and I just get like I'd rather be excited and happy.
Yeah.
So if I'm around the wrong people, it's easy to get excited around things that aren't great for you, right?
Okay.
Like
So even if they're like quote unquote the wrong people, you'll still get like excited and might lead you.
not anymore. I'm a little bit like more particular around
Yeah.
who I
Yeah.
hang out
Yeah.
with, and
Rightfully so. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. Like I a lot more particular, and because of that, yeah, I'm like a social chameleon. So
Okay.
I will adapt to the people around me.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
It's. I was just having this conversation yesterday driving home with my girlfriend because
Mhm.
there's someone that's in. I don't want to say too much, but basically like there's someone in my life where I said to her, I said, I find it difficult to be who I want to be
Mm.
around them without because I know it will cause problems.
Like your authenticity will like trigger them in a way, or
Just certain behaviors that I
yeah,
know are true to myself where I've
yeah.
had to bite my tongue or had to like
Okay.
hold back because I'm like not appeasing them, but I just like I don't want to deal with the stress of them arguing.
Mm.
You know, like I just
Yeah.
certain times I've held back and then I just like in order to have peace in my life and in
Mhm.
their life, like I just don't like being around them. Like
Mhm.
it's just it's hard. Like that was the best way to say it, I think, is like it's hard for me to be who I know I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
without causing conflict.
Yeah. That's takes incredible amount of self-awareness to come to that like realization.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know. I feel like I don't know if you've ever had those experiences
Oh
where you
yeah.
like leave hanging out with somebody or doing something and you're like, why do I feel weird about the way I said that or like the way I did
Mm.
this thing
Yeah.
or the way I didn't say that kind
Yeah.
of bugs me a little bit. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah.
I'm like that. I ruminate a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm always thinking about that when I leave social situations and that was just like why do I feel bad about being myself around that person? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
good feeling.
No,
Like
no. There's a beautiful quote by Gabor Mate, and he says, "We give up our authenticity for connection." And
holy shit, yeah.
so essentially, we're giving up our true self, like our true authentic self, just to appease or connect with someone else. And that's
Or
like
just avoid conflict sometimes because you're like, it's just
totally,
not worth it. And yeah.
totally. And there's also a belief that if you show up as yourself, that'll create some form of rupture, or the other person will like be upset by who you are. So we avoid like yeah, in the name of conflict, we just don't speak our truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you normally, because I am the type of person to just be like, I'm just not going to fucking be around that person anymore because
Mhm.
I just know myself. I'm, like I said, I'm a social chameleon.
Mhm.
And so that's really the only strategy I've gotten to the point where I've just like had to say to people, like, yo, if we're going to do this, I can't hang out with you. Like, it just can't happen.
Yeah.
And it's like cost me quite a few relationships. Some of them, you know, they're like, hey, I actually was tired of it too, and I
No
just
way.
thought, yeah, like literally, there. I was like, yo, these types of jokes, like I'm not down for it. Like it's kind of
Mm.
childish.
Mhm.
And then I've even had some of my buddies say that to me, where I'm like, oh yeah, that was just always the jokes that we made together, and like no one ever
Mhm.
said anything, and
Mhm.
I'm not really down for it either. Like I'm glad you said it. Like
No way.
yeah, like weird
That's so dope.
conversations. But
Yeah.
obviously, you lose a lot of relationships in that
Yeah.
way as well.
Oh yeah.
Do you have any strategies like other than just like cutting people off or just having that conversation? I guess.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's a good question. And again, it depends, man. Like uh something someone taught me not too long ago was like how much energy are you willing to invest in this other person or in this relationship? So if this person is causing you grief and you don't value the relationship as much as you did, then like it depends. Like would you feel more comfortable having a conversation and letting them know how you feel? Would you feel more comfortable just like cutting them off completely? Like there's no right or wrong way. So again, for myself, it depends. Like it depends on how valuable this friendship was to me or is to me. Um, and it's not easy, man. It's not easy like having these conversations and knowing that it might lead to some form of rupture, might lead to like walking away from a relationship. I always believe that yeah, it's important to speak your truth, even if it's difficult. Um, so that's something I would work towards, is being able to have that conversation with someone and let them know how I feel, and also like what I want moving forward. Like there's one thing letting someone know how you feel, but also like what do you want out of that friendship? Like are you telling them how you feel because that friendship is important to you, or are you telling them how you feel and you're now walking away from that relationship? So yeah, it all depends, man. I've had a few instances in the past few years having to walk away from certain relationships, and like I think that's the beautiful thing about life, right? It's um, you we're not always going to remain friends, and someone can be in your life for a friend told me this. It's like someone can come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. You
Mhm.
know, and like you meet people along your path, and you hope that along that path they can join you. Right? They can join you on this path that you're walking along, and at some point they might veer off and go on their own path. The same way you might veer off and go on your own path, and that's okay. Um, so yeah, having open communication is important.
Mhm.
And one thing I love, and I try to embody myself, it's called self responsibility or self responsible language, and it's essentially like taking responsibility for your thoughts, your actions, your words. And when you can take responsibility for all of those things, like what you say, how you act, what your thoughts and feelings are, then that leaves the responsibility of other people on them, and that allows you to be able to speak your truth and be responsible for how you feel, and also not taking responsibility for someone else.
Mhm.
And that could mean like me telling you that something you said upset me, and not taking on your reaction, right? Not taking responsibility for how you respond to how I'm feeling or what I just shared with you.
Mhm. Would you take that like like how exactly does that work? Because I know like obviously like I know with my girlfriend all the time we get in little tiffs like verbally,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it'll be like, oh well, you use this tone. It's like, well, I was reacting to like your tone, like, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of goes like back and forth. How would
Yeah.
that work in a real life kind of situation?
Yeah. So, and yeah, I love that question. And I love that example because relationships, like,
We joke because I always say like I'm always right. You just hate the way I say it. And she's like, honestly, it's true. I just have one of those voices, and I have very sarcastic, deadpan humor where it just
yeah,
comes across as like you're being a dick, and I'm like,
yeah,
no, that's just how I sound
yeah.
sometimes. Like
And what's so crazy about that example is like her truth.
I'm not always right,
Yeah,
obviously.
of course. Just gotta put that out there.
I'm gonna
Uh,
cut that out.
yeah, and what I love about any type of relationship and argument is that her truth is hers. Or her experience is her truth, the same way your experience is your truth. Like,
I'm gonna cut that part out.
so if you can come to a situation with that mindset, that how I
Yeah.
feel, my beliefs, what I'm seeing right now is my truth, and what she's seeing, what her belief is, what her experience is her truth. Then you can try to come to like there's more compassion to your experiences, because right now you and I are having this experience, right? But my experience is going to be different than yours, even
Mhm.
though it's the same experience.
Right. Yeah.
Mine's going to be different than yours based off of my childhood, my trauma, my beliefs,
This is
my
my home and it's not yours. So
yeah, it's
just
so
that is
so
different.
many reasons,
Yeah.
right? So many reasons. And yet we're having the same experience and it's going to be completely different. The same way you have an argument with your partner, although it's like you're talking about the same thing or you're experiencing the same thing, your experiences are so different based
Hmm.
off of so many things. Um, so it's not me versus you. It's us versus the problem. It's us versus whatever we're talking about. But it always ends up like we almost like dive into our like childlike emotional state of like I need to be right.
I need to win.
I need to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot of it. A lot of it is for me. Like I hate being wrong.
Yeah.
I
Well,
fucking hate it.
what does that mean if you're wrong?
Like you mean like psychologically?
Yeah. Like
If
if
I
you
had to take my best guess, I would mean like that's like the difference between picking the berry that is poisonous for you or not. Like
okay.
that
So
could be life
yeah.
or death.
Yeah. Yeah. And it almost comes down to that. Like if you were to
It feels like it for sure. Like
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
If you were to dig deep enough, you would probably find this like core.
Hopefully I'm not picking. Hopefully I'm more of a hunter than a gatherer. I'd like to think, but
Yeah, that's
not
fair.
nothing wrong with it. But not anyway. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Do you hunt?
No.
Okay, so it doesn't hit too close to home.
No.
Yeah, just the masculine in you. Just
I picked
yeah.
berries this morning at my buddy's farm. So
Okay, okay. But yeah, if you were to dig deep enough, there's like probably like this life or death reaction to what this like mundane argument or experience is.
hmm
And if we can like tap into what that belief or fear is deep down inside, then we can offer ourselves compassion.
yeah.
Like one like I, like it was a couple of years ago I had this like profound healing experience just doing shadow work. And I was in a relationship with a woman who was like, Kevin, you're always like you're controlling and you're manipulative and you lie to me and as a man who grew up like with a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear that people were just going to abandon me or that I wasn't good enough. So to hear those judgments from someone else, it terrified me and I became so angry and defensive because if I was manipulative or if I was controlling or if I was a liar, that would mean that I'm not worthy to be in a relationship and that would reaffirm that I'm not good enough. Right? So I would like defend myself tooth and nail to what this ex-partner would tell me. And when I started doing shadow work and this I got help from my mom, which she's an amazing woman. She did the 12-step program for food and sugar addicts, and in the 12-step program you have to write down all the ways that you've hurt people in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty familiar with
Are
it.
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So she helped me realize like when my ex-partner was accusing me of being, manipulative, controlling, a liar, and so on and so forth, like she was right. Like she was fully right. And it was so healing and relieving to come to terms with that because what I realized, and for myself and also for like everyone else on this planet, is we don't do these things to harm other people because we're bad humans.
hmm
We do it out of fear,
hmm
right? And I'll speak for myself. Like I was manipulative, I was controlling because I was afraid she was going to leave. I was afraid that she would abandon me. I was afraid that she would tell me I wasn't good enough. So I would like control situations. I would manipulate situations to prevent her from seeing parts of myself that I was so ashamed of,
hmm
preventing her from leaving. Um, so like she was right. Her experience was absolutely right. But it doesn't make me a bad person. It just helps me realize that I'm a human and I have fears and I did these things unconsciously to protect myself. from like going back, it's almost like life or death. Because if I was unworthy or not good enough, then like essentially it's almost like tribal. Then you won't be part of a community, you won't be part of a tribe. And if you're not part of a tribe, what happens?
Mm-hmm.
You end up dying, right? If you're ousted from a tribe and you're off on your own, you end up dying. So like it almost is life or death, or at least your nervous system treats it that way.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So like going back to like having an argument and having like two different experiences, like we're almost doing it out of fear of this like worst case scenario thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be right, and if I'm wrong, what does that mean about me, right? And so it's an incredible opportunity to like really look within yourself, like for these arguments, like what is my need to be right, like what is my need to always have to one up the person next to me or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I definitely relate to the abandonment issues. I every relationship I've been in, dude, it's manifested in a different way. Just because of like that one relationship that you have where someone leaves you because you say a bit weird. Like for my experience, like it was just like I tried to hide that I was like dealing with some shit, and then when she kind of saw it, she's like, I wish you'd just been upfront about all this shit. Like, why were you trying to hide this? And that's what caused. But then I internalized that as like, well, I guess I should just never let them find out. You know, like, and that was like obviously didn't manifest well. But I definitely relate to the abandonment issues. Isn't it just like a breath of fresh air to just like acknowledge like I have some flaws. Like,
Oh fuck yeah.
I am
Yeah.
a little bit incomplete there.
Oh,
like
yeah.
in certain
Yeah.
ways, like
Yeah.
it is kind of just like a game you play of like how long can I hide my flaws, and you like, and it's kind of nice when you get to the point where whether you're in a relationship or not, when you can just be like, yeah, I fucked that up like a lot. Like that's maybe something I should work on. Like,
Yeah.
I've had this experience with most of the people in my life. I should probably take some blame for this.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. There's some patterns there that I should probably take some responsibility for.
yeah.
Yeah, and I would also say like I'm glad you have flaws, right? Because if you told me you're perfect, I wouldn't even like want to converse with you.
Yeah.
You know, because like, and the reason you and I connected was over like being imperfect humans, right? Being able to see our quote unquote flaws and normalize them. Right?
Yeah. And even the things that you like, I know for myself, like every flaw that I have are the things that I would be the most embarrassed to admit I am. I'm, you know, like in terms of like selfishness or like pervertedness or like all of those things. It's like, yeah, I'm one of those. And once you say that, you're like, ah, that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
nice just to get that off my chest.
Yeah, man.
Not feel like for me, the feeling I get is like, oh, it's just like a mask I don't have to hold up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this thing that you don't have to keep buried inside of you. And there's another beautiful saying that shame thrives in silence. So when you shame yourself, you go inward, you don't tell anybody, and this shame is just like eating you up on the inside like day after day. And it's just thriving in that silence. And the moment like you just by saying like the moment I said that, you know, it was like a breath of fresh air or a relief. That's exactly what it is. You're relinquishing this thing that exists inside of you that needs to be let out, man. Because like, there's nothing wrong with having a flaw. Nothing wrong with like, like we're not perfect by any means.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be parts of ourselves that we've been taught. Who knows, but there's parts of ourselves that you know make us imperfect. That might be unhealthy. I don't know.
I know for myself, there's definitely things that are unhealthy, like things that, yeah, for sure. But the other side of it is also like, I think that a lot of the time, like I'm somebody, like I said, I leave a lot of social situations thinking like, fuck, why did I say that? I probably pissed that person off a lot. Like there's a running joke in my group of friends that there is no filter between my brain and my mouth. It's just a straight pipe. Like there's no. So I'm definitely prone to offending people or kind of just saying things at the wrong time. And I leave a lot of situations, rightfully so sometimes, but sometimes it's a little bit, you know, like a self-martyrdom type of thing where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or I maybe made that person uncomfortable. And I get like in those like But it is kind of nice thinking sometimes I always write it off and go, like a lot of my friends, like that is why they like me.
Yeah.
The offhand comments or the little sarcastic humor. It's like for the people that love me, they do like that. So like if it does piss off people that I don't like or don't like me, it's probably gonna happen anyways. It'll probably eventually. So it's kind of nice to just filter that out. It's like, oh, then I know this person actually genuinely likes me for who I am because I can be a little bit annoying sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And there's a huge aspect to like to also trust in the people closest to you that they'll let you know if like if
You
maybe,
cross the line.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, and that gives you the opportunity to like maybe change a behavior around them so you can help them feel safe and also still be yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had a close friend of mine come to me and be like, "Yo, these types of jokes, like, I don't give a shit if you make them around other people, but it pisses me off."
Nice.
And I'm like, 10-4, man. I care more about you than
Yeah.
I care about the joke.
Yeah.
So I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And then half the time, it's funny, even though we've addressed that situation, half the time we still make those jokes sometimes. But at least there's just an understanding now of like, it is a bit of a sore spot. So if
Yeah.
I start making the joke, then it's okay.
Okay.
Like there's kind of
Yeah.
like that give and take. And when you love someone, like they know and like it's obviously you're not trying to hurt me.
For sure. Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
love each other. Like we're
The-
fucking brothers.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. The intention is so pure.
yeah.
Yeah. Were you able to like? Did you ever reflect on what he shared and has?
Oh
that,
yeah. We sat there and had a good chat about it because I at first was not very receptive to it.
Okay.
I'm definitely the type of person where I'm like, do not tell me how to speak.
Okay.
But after he was just like, yo, I'm being dead serious about this. Like, I'm
Yeah.
willing to fucking not hang out with you over this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, all right, dude. Like, I get you. Like,
Yeah.
this means a lot to you.
Yeah.
It's not the fucking hill I'm willing to die on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And we can also like respect like the challenge of even telling you that, but also like he's not telling you like how to speak. He's just telling you what makes him feel uncomfortable.
yeah, really good, like, healthy way to set his boundary. He's
Yeah,
just,
yeah. And his boundaries like I just won't hang out with you if you continue to talk this way. So like you can continue to talk this way. I'm not going to tell you how to speak, but I just won't be around for it.
Yeah.
Which it's like super dope that you have like a friend like willing to tell you how they feel around you.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm one of those types of people where, like, unless you tell me, I'll probably say something that will piss you off eventually. So like, you kind of have to tell me, like, that's my line, dude. Like,
Yeah.
and then I'll dance around it a little bit, and then that's just how I am. I
Yeah.
push my boundaries a bit.
For
but
sure. And I can imagine it's your normal as well, right? Like you don't know what you don't know. So if you've been going through your life unconsciously, just like this is your personality, you like to say things, or maybe you don't think before you speak, and that's just who you are. And when he tells you, like when you said this thing, like I was uncomfortable, or I don't like those type of humor, like that allows you, like that like sparks something inside you and allows you to like oh shit, I do this thing. How often do I do it? I wonder, right? And it just allows you to reflect on this thing, and it becomes this new source of information that maybe you didn't become aware of
yeah.
up until that point.
Yeah, it's funny too about how, like, a lot of the I always call it, like, kind of like the mushy side of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Those types of people, like they'll always say, you don't really have to care about what other people think. But I think in that regard, it's actually more useful too sometimes, because I know for myself, like a lot of the times when I'm reflecting and like whether I'm journaling or if I'm just like kind of like sitting and meditating, I literally think about if I think about my last interaction with that person and that was our only interaction, like what would they think of me? How would they remember me? Like, do I want to be the guy that makes poo-poo jokes and like, or do I want to be the guy that like didn't care about their feelings? Do I want to be, and like, again, I've gone through the idea of like guilting and shaming myself for certain behaviors and certain sense of humor aspects, but it's also to the point where you're like, that's what makes me laugh, dude. I'm going to fucking say what makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Because like, you can literally see the smile come on my face when I think of these things. And it's like, why would I want to avoid that? It's fucking pure joy. So it's like at some point you kind of have to be comfortable of just like, I should think about like what these people think of me, and I do want to think about how I want to be remembered,
Mm-hmm.
but also I have to stay true to like, dude, if it makes me laugh, I'm gonna probably say it. Like it just,
Fair.
like it's.
Yeah.
Should I avoid what truly makes me happy?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think anyone else should. I would hate if someone was like, avoiding something they enjoy for my behalf.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I hear in that like you value humor, you value your own sense of humor, and because you also mentioned like you reflect on how these other people, like if you only ever have one interaction with them, like you reflect on like what that connection was like, how they would feel about you just in that one interaction, and I'm wondering if like do you value your own sense of humor over like the connection, making a connection, or will you try to find some sort of balance?
I'll definitely try and find a sense of
Yeah,
balance.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I tailor my jokes. I try, like, not even just jokes, but just the way. I'm sure you do the exact same thing, but it's kind of like it's kind of to circle back, I guess, where we started with. It's that fine dance between like being authentic to yourself and you're like, yeah, a good fart joke makes me laugh every now and then.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
knowing when you're in a little bit different crowd of
Mhm.
like, yeah, this might maybe make me laugh my ass off, but I'm gonna tell my buddy about it later instead
Yeah,
of just
yeah,
ruining
yeah,
this customer's
yeah,
experience.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, 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 totally. And what I hear in that as well is like safety takes time to build, right? So that like that safety to like be yourself, to be your true self, and
hmm
like yeah, like use those, like have that type of humor, like that takes time to get to like to truly get to know someone,
hmm
to be able to feel comfortable to yeah to make those types of jokes.
hmm yeah, it is. Again, it's not something like I've. There's times where it's happened to me where I'm like sitting up and I'm like, fuck, I really shouldn't have said that. And then there's other times where I'm like, should I have said that? And you're like, I made 2 out of 3 people laugh. Pretty fucking good. That's pretty good odds.
66%,
That's
man.
pretty good odds. What made you kind of sorry, I forgot to ask as well. Do you have
Yeah.
any time restraints? Do you have anything you got to jump to after this or
I'm good for like another 45 minutes.
okay, sweet. What made you go the shift from law enforcement to do this kind of stuff?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I don't know. Uh, I know why I left law enforcement, and I can touch on that a little bit. And
That
then
was right as you were coming to Vancouver, you
that was
said?
just before a couple years before leaving to Vancouver. So I don't even remember when I got hired on in law enforcement, but I was hired on as a transit enforcement officer and just outside Toronto. So we were essentially like the police officers of the transit system.
Yeah, I think we have that here, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You have that here. And I worked really hard to get to this into this position, and I like set these really high expectations for myself in the sense that like this is going to be the rest of my life and this job is going to be amazing and it pays well and this is what happiness looks like and essentially what I didn't realize at the time is just how like miserable and how much I was struggling with my mental health and thinking that if I just got to this next stage that would mean happiness forever.
Mm,
Just like a very like immature way
been
of
there, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like a lot of us have. Um, and one thing I didn't realize, and I shared this earlier, is that I struggled with my mental health like growing up, and it was just my norm. So I had no idea. I was just living life completely unconsciously, and I had like really bad anxiety, and but again didn't know it was anxiety. Um, I was like always scared, and didn't have a lot of self confidence. I always made myself small around people. Yeah, when I put myself around people, especially like my peers, and like I have friends growing up who are like engineers, doctors, lawyers, and anytime I was in a room with them, like I would make myself so small, just feeling like I am not good enough, smart enough, handsome enough to be in this room, and just find every excuse to make myself as small and afraid and anxious as possible. Um, I couldn't tell you like what I was good at. Like I was very self-critical, very self judgmental, um, and finding myself like needing external validation to feel good about myself. And the only time I would feel comfortable in a setting is if I was drinking. So if I was like getting drunk, then I started to feel like more of quote unquote myself. So then I would need alcohol to like feel good about myself. And you can imagine that slippery slope.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, trust me, dude. I definitely relate to that feeling.
yeah, and I share this story over and over for that same reason, because I feel like so many people can relate to it. Um, so yeah, so this is what essentially my life looked like, and needing that external validation. So I was always finding myself like in some form of relationship, whether it's a situationship or relationship, just needing a woman to make me feel good about myself, because
Hmm.
I didn't know how to love myself. And so fast forward, I'm in this career in law enforcement. Essentially, like I'm told like how to act, what to wear, what to say, where to stand. Just like lost all of my autonomy, and I got into a relationship that was like very unhealthy from date number one. We just what we had in common was we just really enjoyed drinking together,
Yeah. Been
and
there, man.
and and it was like I said, unhealthy from the beginning. Yet I was like really forcing this relationship, and she was actually checking off some boxes. Like she was becoming a doctor, like she had a somewhat healthy family, somewhat healthy like upbringing. Uh,
As healthy as they can be.
yeah, at least what I deemed healthy at the time.
Yeah.
Like successful parents, and so I was like, check, check, check. You
Like
know,
both parents, that's pretty fucking
yeah,
successful
yeah,
at this
yeah.
point in time.
100. Oh my God, 100%, man. And that's we also look at that in society as well. It's like, oh, both parents must be a happy family.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but
Like, hey, what are the odds?
yeah. Oh my
Literally,
goodness,
what are the
literally,
odds?
yeah,
Yeah,
not very high.
yeah.
But so yeah, so I was forcing this relationship to work, and at one point I like suggested and heavily suggested, and I'll even take this responsibility of like of moving in together. So within like 8 months, we're now living together, and there's physical abuse, there's emotional abuse, and one I was in the doghouse one week, and I was sleeping on the couch. I can't remember what the argument was, but I got home from a shift, and I had to be at work at 5 in the morning the next day, and I'd been sleeping on the couch, and I came home, and she wasn't home, and but her like hair straightener was out, and so I could tell like she was going out drinking, and I was just like, fuck this, I'm taking the bed, like I got to be up at 3:30 in the morning, like I need a good night's sleep. So I ended up sleeping in the bed, and at 2 in the morning I wake up to like her like stumbling home, and like something just didn't seem right, and she opened up the bedroom door and she saw me. She's like, oh shit. um, so I was like, okay, something really isn't right. So I got up, I used the ensuite bathroom, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go outside and see what's going on. So I open up the door to the living room, and I see her and another guy on my
Oh
on my
fuck,
couch,
man.
and surprisingly in the moment I was like pretty calm, and just told the guy to leave, and he left, and that's when I saw red, and like, and that's when my world just crumbled from underneath me, because I'd valued like relationship and marriage over anything in my life. Like I didn't consider myself to be, like truly like successful, and to me success was like being in a relationship. And now that like one of the worst things that could happen in a relationship just happened to me, I'm now miserable in my job. I'm just miserable in life. Like my world just crumbled from underneath me. I hit my rock bottom. I didn't want to live anymore, and that was the greatest moment in my life.
Hmm.
And that allowed me to start to make decisions for myself. So yes, did I turn to alcohol and weed to cope? Absolutely. COVID just hit like 2 months after this breakup. I moved back into my parents, so and I didn't have the healthiest relationship with my parents. So I was drinking, I was smoking a lot of weed, I was playing video games, and I was just numbing myself. But I was
Fuck, we should have linked up. I got a breakup like probably 6 months before that.
no way.
Yeah.
Okay, we could have gamed together.
Yeah, yeah. Fuck.
But
We could have enabled each other.
we could have. Yes, we could have. Yeah, just smoking weed and drinking while we're gaming. So yeah, I did a lot of that, especially in COVID, man.
Yeah.
COVID was an interesting time. But yeah, I had the support of a good buddy who was also like a mental health support worker. I had a counselor at the time, and a dream of mine was to always move out west. And I'd visited a couple times, and it always felt like home. And for the first time in my life, I had nothing holding me back. Right, I wasn't paying rent. I wasn't in a relationship. I didn't like my career.
Mm.
So getting over the fear of leaving six figures on the table and essentially restarting my career was terrifying, and it gave me hope. Like it gave me a glimmer of hope, and so yeah, quit my job, saved a little bit of money, and booked a one-way ticket, and moved to Vancouver 3 years ago. And when I arrived, I had no idea what I was gonna do, and I was also like really fucking terrified. Like all of my fears were like bubbling to the surface. Like I lacked so much self-esteem, so much self-worth. Couldn't tell you my traits, what I was good at. But I did meet. I call them my spiritual family, and I met them the first month I arrived in Vancouver, and they just like they saw things in me that I was not able to see in myself, and they just held me when I needed to be held. And because there's just this little boy inside of me who's just so fucking afraid, and so ashamed of himself. And one of the women in this spiritual family, she'd been a counselor for like 6-7 years at that point, and she's like, Kev, like every time we have a conversation, like I'm noticing that you're like naturally empathic. You are so good at listening. You hold space so well. I feel safe around you. Like this is the school I went to. It's like super healing. It'll support you with where you're at in your life, and you can have your own business. Like you can start your own business in a career in counseling. And I was like, okay. So one phone call with this school, I was like, all right, this is the next step of my life. And like every day going to the school just reaffirmed this step that I took. And in this school, I've shared earlier, like this experiential style. So I'm like processing my trauma every single day. So I'm learning things about my childhood that happened to me that I was like, you know, minimizing, and realizing my relationship with myself and how negative and judgmental and critical it was. Starting to see like what I value, starting to see what my superpowers, what my traits are. And like it's been over 3 years now. And it's so easy for me to say, like, I've never loved myself more in this moment than in my life. And life is not easy. Don't get me wrong. Like I still struggle. However, like I am so happy with the human that I am, with this newfound sense of resiliency, with this passion that I have in men's mental health, in my own mental health growth. So yeah, so from the pain that I've endured in my life, I've taken that and found strength in that, and now I get to turn around and support other men in their pain, and help show them that it's possible.
Hmm. Yeah. It is kind of weird too. And it's weird when you consider like the mental health of each gender, because like all the studies kind of show, like when they had like the social dilemma launch, and they launched all the statistics to that. I don't know if you looked into it, but like a lot of it, if you look at I think female suicides went up like skyrocketed. And it's something that you think like, I feel like chicks only talk about how they feel. Like, how the fuck is that happening? Like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
that was my first thought. I'm like, how is that even happening? And then you think about all the comparison, all the things that they look at, and especially as well, like, whether we're comfortable saying it or not, I'm pretty comfortable saying it. Like, women value a lot of what they think of themselves based on how they think people view them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Mm-hmm.
it's a superficial way to look at it, but it is true. Like it
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, they're constantly. You or I could feel comfortable leaving the house in a pair of sweats and like a shitty
Mm-hmm.
t-shirt. Like, dude, the amount of times I've left the place covered in paint, like clothes that are covered in
Yeah.
paint or like wood
Yeah.
stain or glue or
Yeah.
concrete, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to pump gas. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
where they think about those things. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I don't know if I look good enough to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
And you're like, you think about that? Like, that's
Yeah.
something that you actually, and like, I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but it's like, you see, if you're inundated with pictures of people that you think, you know, your boyfriend's looking at, your husband's
Mm-hmm.
looking at, and they're like, that's what I'm fucking compared to,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like, of course you think about it and you're like, yeah, no shit, women are suffering from
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like with men, it's a completely like there's that cliche of like, yeah, man up, be a man,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the other side of it where it's kind of like I feel like a lot of the time we enable men to like kind of like there's like the two sides of it, like where it's like it kind of like the stifle your emotions until you're fucking like you said, like it turns abusive,
Mm-hmm.
or we like enable your victimhood mentality until you're just like a walking like child,
Yeah.
you know? And it's kind of like that's, I feel like the two sides of who struggle with mental health the most.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like there's the people out there that have just faced kind of maybe like an unfair amount of consequences for their actions. And you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
wow, dude, like you actually are pretty hard done by. And like,
Mm.
at this point, the message of pick yourself up by your bootstraps maybe might not help you.
No.
But then there's other people where it's like, dude, you got this. Like, what the fuck you talking about? You can definitely pick yourself up out of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you kind of differentiate that? Like when you come across those situations? Because I'm sure you've had people where you're like, dude, you just literally need to start exercising more and fucking eat better and like get a fucking better group of friends and like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like as harsh as that sounds to some people, it's like that's gonna fucking make you feel better, dude. Like everyone can admit, like that's if you did all those things, you'd probably feel better about your life.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
if you just did those things. And then there's other people where you're like, no, dude, you actually have some fucking baggage you need to drop off. Like,
Yeah. I would almost argue that everyone has some form of baggage, and what might work for me won't necessarily work for someone else. And I think like I know if I were to work out, that would support my mental health, and I could be confident in saying that if someone else in front of me worked out, that would improve their mental health. But their ability to work out would be different than mine based off of like whatever their shit is. So like yes, if they were to do these things that are like more practical and maybe logical, would they improve their mental health? Most likely. But their ability to do those things will be like so different than my own. And again, like it always comes back to like the individual, and it depends. It depends on the situation. It depends on what they've been through.
yeah, yeah. And I like obviously I preach this kind of like structured rigidity because
Mm-hmm.
that is, like I said, what I'd say it saved me, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
and I'd say it's like those two, I'd say kind of two different avenues going down. And it's interesting because they almost don't really, they're almost conflicting avenues. But I'd say like the first two things that changed my life drastically were like as stupid and as like Joe Rogan as it sounds, was like
Mm-hmm.
going on a couple hallucinogenic trips
Mm-hmm.
and then like having structure implemented in my life. Like I went
Mm-hmm.
from like working in a bar and never giving a fuck when I went to bed,
Mm-hmm.
doing drugs, spending all my money on shoes and drugs and
Mm-hmm.
partying and trying to basically just like convince people I wasn't as shitty as I was so they'd sleep with me. Like that was pretty much where I got my
Yeah.
self-esteem from, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's but yeah, it was literally like I gotta quit doing drugs. I gotta quit smoking cigarettes. I remember like I had to run. I was like I gotta start running. And I ran to the end of the block and threw up because I was smoking like 2 packs a day at the time. But that was like what changed my. There was like a substantial trip I had where I thought I was, to make a long story short, basically,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to die. And then I realized that scared me. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, shit, I don't want to die.
Mm.
And then there was like, it was shortly after that where I was like, I'm going to quit smoking cigarettes. I'm going to stop doing drugs and start taking my life a bit more seriously. So it was like this weird dance between, having that structured rigidity and like also a weird hallucinogenic trip.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I can definitely appreciate that, and I'm wondering how you were able to become so disciplined.
Yeah, dude, I literally just forced myself.
What did that look like?
The first thing was the wake up time.
Okay.
That was the very first thing because I think that's the hardest thing for people to convince themselves to do. And it was just I started at I think 7 a.m. was early for me at the time, and so I just started with a 7 a.m. wake up call, and then I dialed it back 5 minutes every day
Nice.
till I got to around 4:30, and now that's where I sit.
Okay.
So we're between 4 and 5 is where I wake
No
up
way.
typically.
Okay.
And there was just it was kind of that. I was already working out pretty consistently at the time, so it was never like I was one of those like gym bro bodybuilders that was like just lifting all the time, eating chicken, rice, and broccoli, and then snorting the rest of my calories. You know, like it was. So like I was already working out and like eating decently.
Yeah.
It was just like stop drinking, stop doing, and for like the stop doing drugs was as easy as stop drinking because once I stopped drinking, I stopped doing drugs, and once I stopped drinking, I cut out all my friends that partied. And so it was kind of just like bang, bang, bang. Like it was like a domino effect. But it all kind of, like I said, I went through a breakup right before COVID. And that was roughly the same time where I was just kind of like, kind of got to stop drinking. I was working at a place that had a bar in it. Like I was working at Brown's.
Okay.
And so it was like really easy to just close and drink, you know? And
Not the healthiest environment.
yeah, and it's like when you're fresh out of a breakup and you're a server in a restaurant and you're like surrounded by partying, and it's really easy to get into unhealthy habits. And then, yeah, I don't know. I guess for me that was kind of it. Like I just I moved out of my parents' place. I stopped smoking cigarettes and stopped drinking, and I'm California sober now, as they say.
What's that?
I just smoke weed and occasionally do mushrooms here and there.
Fuck yeah.
And yeah, I think for me it all started kind of with the wake up call, the wake up time. And I don't know if you've heard of 75 Hard, the program 75 Hard.
Yeah.
I did that. I kind of did it once a year for the past 3 years.
Okay.
And so that's always kind of something I do. Like the last time I did it was like I stepped on the scale and I was sitting at like 220.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, fuck, I'm getting heavy. I got to do it again. Like that.
No way.
And I just haven't slipped off like my own personal routine in a while. So I just haven't felt the need to.
What are you at now?
I float between 180, 190.
180, 190.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. If I'm gonna do any competition or anything, I try and get down 175, 180 ish. But
Okay.
yeah,
What competition is this?
for jujitsu.
Oh, no way.
But I haven't done any for a few months now. So
Okay. 170 is like your
175 is like the lightest I'll go.
okay.
That's like, yeah, it takes effort to get there, but
Yeah.
I comfortably sit around 180, 190.
Sick. Okay. And going back to like this rigid schedule that you followed, did you ever fall off the wagon?
A couple years back, yeah, like the first time I did 75 hard, I don't think I did it as strict as I should have been with myself, and so it kind of the results didn't last as long. And so, like I said, I kind of got a little bit chunkier. And also my goals changed a lot. Like I stopped bodybuilding and like I just focus more on like I just want to be athletic now.
Yeah.
I want to be comfortable.
Okay.
You know, like I don't want to have joint pain.
Yeah.
When I was like big, dude, I was like I couldn't even buckle myself in comfortably. You know, once I got into my vehicle. So like I was like I just want to move well, you know, like
Yeah.
and so yeah, I just started doing yoga and jujitsu.
No way.
I lift weights like twice a week now,
Okay.
if that.
Sick. Okay. And so you've not necessarily fallen off the wagon in your routine. And how's your mental health like overall?
I'd say pretty good right now. Yeah, I'd say pretty sharp. I I'd say that only because, not like I don't have bad experiences,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm just able to catch them a little bit quicker,
Yeah.
and I'm able to reflect on them a little bit more impartially.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
there's been a lot of times where I've like come to like even my girlfriend and been like, "Hey, like this happened. I'm really sorry about that." And she's like, "What the fuck? Who's this?"
No way.
Like, and it's just
Okay.
little. And I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to fucking
Yeah,
toot
yeah.
my own horn too
No,
much,
no, no.
but it's. I use a lot of physical cues for myself.
What do you mean?
I mean, like, I know that when I'm in conversations, a lot of the time, that's a lot of the struggle that I've had. Like I said, I'm very selfish and I get in my own head. So a lot of conversations that I get in, whether it's with friends, particularly my girlfriend, my mother, a lot of people like that, I like to be right. I don't like to be wrong.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where I can feel the physical cues of when I'm getting worked up. Like the main one is my fist clench.
Okay.
And so when I notice that, like it's almost, I feel it in my forearm first. And then I like look down, I'm like, chill, dude, breathe. And like, just breathe, just chill, dude. Like, why are you getting emotional over this? I make it a game and I make fun of myself in my head so that I laugh like I just did. Why are you being a little bitch about this? Dude, you're going to let them get you emotional like this? And then I just laugh and I'm like, oh, this is just like a thing. Like, why am I doing this?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you're able to have like healthier conversations with yourself. Like
Sometimes
Yeah.
like I said, if I do that, sometimes I'll calm myself down too much and I'll start making jokes and that pisses them off as well.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah. And we find like we also mask our like
That's my coping mechanism.
discomfort. Yeah.
Is to
with
laugh at what
humor.
makes me pain.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or painful, have pain.
It's like almost like self-deprecating humor in a way.
Yeah, and I just like I don't like the feeling when people are quiet when everything's uncomfortable. So I just feel like that void has to be filled, and I'll be the one to fill it. Like that's the way I
Okay.
view
And
it.
You're coming in with stand-up comedy.
Sometimes I'll just say what I think at the time, which isn't always helpful.
Okay. Okay.
Like
Yeah.
it's just like there's times where I'm like, well, this is fucking shitty, and
Yeah,
people are like,
yeah.
I can't believe you just say that. It is like I'm not fucking having fun. Like
Yeah. Yeah. I'm uncomfortable right now.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's on that note, that's like a lot of the time I'll be like, on that note.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways,
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious though, like with this this rigidity in your life, like what has been the biggest shifts that you've noticed in terms of your mental health now that you're where you are today?
yeah, I'd say like the biggest downfall is like I said, I've kind of set my brain up now where it gets me anxious or uncomfortable if there's no structure or if I'm, idle time. I've always had that theory, especially in the last like 4 years, of like idle time is the devil or idle hands are the devil's play toys. Have you heard
Okay.
that before?
No.
Yeah, idle hands are the devil's play toys. I always get myself in trouble if I'm not doing shit.
Okay.
With the 12-step program, they have like the hungry, angry, what is it? Hungry, angry, halt. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. That's what it is.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
Yeah, so when you feel that
Yeah.
stinking thinking coming
Oh,
and you're
yeah.
like, oh, I want to drink. Oh, I want to do this. For me, after I quit drinking always made me depressed. It was easy to quit drinking. After I quit drinking, I turned to sugary snacks.
Nice.
And that was always like I'm like, I want a fucking Pop-Tart or some Oreos or something.
Yeah,
like my
yeah.
inner little, that was from my childhood, like a way that I comfort myself.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I had a friend be like, ask yourself when you think that way, like, are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And for me, that's just how I spend idle time. If I have a day off and I have nothing to do, which is very rare, those are the days I'm going to get myself into some trouble.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I just
yeah.
I'll be shopping for shit I don't need. I'll be
yeah.
like, it's not always precarious, like bad shit, but
Yeah.
like sometimes, like I said, spending money I don't need to be spending or,
Yeah.
looking at shit on the internet I shouldn't be looking at,
Yeah.
like it's just, and so I've kind of had to, find a more comfortable way to spend idle time. It's become a thing I've gotten uncomfortable with because I, subconsciously taught myself sitting around and playing video games and smoking weed all day is not a good way to spend your fucking time. Like that's what made you depressed in the first place for the most part.
Okay.
And so for me now, when I have a day off and it's kind of like you've just worked 8 days in a row,
Mm-hmm.
you probably do just need to throw on some music you like, smoke a fucking joint, and sit down in the living room and stretch for an hour. Like,
Yeah.
that's probably good for your
Yeah.
fucking brain and body.
Just to shut off.
You know, like
Yeah.
just chill out, listen to some tunes, water your fucking flowers,
Yeah.
stretch. And it's kind of like I'm just kind of going through the process of like, yeah, you don't need to feel bad to just like, yeah. I guess the only other thing I'd say other than rigidity, I guess it ties into it, would be I'm on a war against phones and social media now,
Oh
dude.
yeah.
Full on war. I like all my notifications are turned off unless you
Nice.
call me or text me directly.
Okay.
Like social media can fuck off. It's on like a 15-minute timer on my phone.
Nice.
I all my clips are now done through AI.
Yeah.
I have a scheduler for all my shit. Like I could not care less about social media anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm even so far as to be like, I think it's fucking fake. I literally think it's a ghost town at this point, dude. And I convinced myself for a long time that I needed to be on social media
Mm-hmm.
and interacting with people and just like always available
Yeah.
because I was like, oh, it's how I'm going to grow my podcast or how I'm going to grow my renovation business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I've actually just seen growth through business just through word of mouth and doing a good fucking job. And I've kind of come to this conclusion that, yeah, social media is just fucking fake. And like, we just convince ourselves that we need it so that we just. I have my own conspiracy theories and
Yeah.
nefarious ideas of what I think is behind it all. But I think even that, like, the layperson could admit, like, we don't need to be spending our fucking entire lives looking at this black screen. Like,
No.
it's not fucking productive and we don't feel better. Like, you can see suicide rates go up.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, obviously, no one's getting healthier from this,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So for me, that was like a big thing of just like, and you almost notice it more in other people now when you're like hanging out with someone and they go on their phone. You're like, oh, you're on social media a lot, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like I can kind of fucking see it.
One of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm having a conversation with someone and I'm like mid sentence and they pick up their phone and start looking at it, and you can just see them zone out.
Yeah.
And like not even be here in the moment anymore.
Yeah.
Whether they're reading a text or doing whatever on their phone, and it drives me crazy.
You want to know what I do? I won't talk anymore.
That's I do the exact same
I
thing.
literally will just stop talking and they'll look at me and I'll be like, no, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hold you back. If you
Yeah.
have an important conversation, get to it. I don't want
Yeah.
you thinking about something else.
Yeah.
But I don't want to fucking half talk to you.
Yeah.
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 I'm
Yeah.
the same, dude. That's why I love podcasts so much as well, because I like my phone is not with me, my computer, I'm not even looking at it. Like it's literally like one of the only times in my life where I'm just like able to sit down for like at least an hour and just talk to a human being.
Yeah.
And it's
True connection, man.
yeah, I guess that is there's many different aspects that I've kind of implemented, but I'd say it kind of corresponds with what you said. Like I definitely lean more towards like the rigidity side, but I've seen the negative aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is just like disconnecting from the digital world and really just being in the physical world of just like, I'm going to spend some time outside today, you know, do some shit that I don't normally do.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like I am one of those people where like I have to exercise vigorously every single day. I'm one of those hyperactive people.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't sit down for 2 hours unless I worked out this morning.
Okay.
You know, like it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
how I function. I have
yeah.
to sweat every morning.
And you've been that way for years?
I mean, I've been like that my whole life. I just wasn't always working out. So I was a
Okay.
lot more disruptive.
Yeah.
You know, like it didn't manifest well. I
Okay.
realized that like if I just make myself sweat my ass off first thing
Yeah.
in the morning, I'm a lot more chill during the day. I'm a lot
Yeah.
more easy to be around, a lot less destructive to the world around me.
Would you be more like irritable?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That I love that you're able to turn this thing that you know, you mentioned, you use the word disruptive, like this thing that could turn into destruction or whatever, and you've turned it into something like so healthy for you, right? Like, you know, like yourself so well, you're like, I'm going to get this workout in every morning. Then that allows me to have like a calmer day where I can communicate with the people around me and not feel so irritated.
Yeah, and just more patient. Like I wouldn't be able to let you finish a sentence. Even just listening to you, you can see I fidget. Like if you were to
Yeah.
watch any of my episodes
Yeah,
and
I've
fast
noticed
forward
that.
it, you would just see me like shake the whole time because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
moved the whole day. Like
Yeah.
that's literally from like 4:30 in the morning until about like 7 p.m. at night. That's when I slow down.
Have you ever reflected on the fidgeting?
I've always just chalked it up to what I've been saying is like my body has a lot of fucking energy, dude.
Mm.
And if I
Mm.
don't use it, it will manifest in bad ways. Like
Okay.
I'm just I have to purposely make myself. So one of the other things I do, that's the first two things I do is first thing when I wake up,
Mm-hmm.
feed the cat, start the coffee machine,
Yeah.
and then I work out for like 20 to 60 minutes.
Okay.
Bare minimum, I'll just watch an episode of a show and just sit on the bike.
Mm-hmm.
But like I have weights in here. I do like
Mm-hmm.
my own little routine, and then I do some stretching, and then I sit and read. I force myself to sit still
No
for
way.
another half hour.
Good for you.
So it's like an hour of moving a lot, and then a
Yeah.
half hour of just sit still and read.
Good for you.
And like I didn't read my first book till I was like 24, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
And so for me, like even reading, like that's probably one of the biggest books I've ever read, aside from the Bible. Like that is probably the biggest book I've ever read,
Yeah.
and I'm like almost halfway through it right now.
Fuck yeah. How does it feel to like recognize that in yourself? Like
Dude, my girl laughed at me last week because I'm like, look, I'm like a third way through this book. She's like, are you proud of yourself? I'm like, I seriously am. Like
Fuck
this
yeah.
is like
Fuck
450
yeah.
pages is a
Yeah.
lot for
Yeah.
me. Like
yeah, man. Good for you, brother.
So yeah, those like I said, I go towards the structured side, but it's like I have to exercise and then I have to force myself to sit still because I will not be able to unless I practice it. Like it's a
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and the reason I asked if you reflect on it, and I really appreciate that answer because like it sounds like you're like very self-aware of like who you are, what's happened to you, like how you operate. Like if you don't do something, this is what's going to happen. So the rigidity makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I appreciate your ability to do the things that are uncomfortable, like sitting still and forcing yourself to do that.
Yeah.
Do you find it a lot easier now to sit still?
No, dude, it doesn't get easier.
Really?
Not for me.
Shit.
I think here's what I'll say. It's easier to convince myself to do it,
Mhm.
but it's never easier to do it. Like for me, like meditating, ice baths, yoga, sitting and reading, anything where I have to be still and focused on my breath pretty much. The 3 minutes in the ice bath always feels like 30 minutes. There's no fucking time where I've ever been like, oh wow, I did 7 minutes without. It's always grueling for me.
Wow.
It hasn't gotten easier.
Yeah.
It's gotten easier to like the time it takes for me to convince myself to get in,
Yeah.
or like to just like for me, like when I meditate, I just set a timer on my phone for like 7 to 10 minutes and just sit down because then at least I know I have the peace of mind. I'm not going to fall asleep and miss something in my schedule or something. That's how I can convince myself to do it. You know, I set a 10-minute timer and I'm like, I'm just going to sit down. It's easy to convince myself to do the sit down and meditate, but I don't get better at it. I'm not somebody. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I just find those things. Like I said, the thing itself is always hard. It's always about 10 pages into reading. I'm always like, I want to get another cup of coffee. I should get up and stretch. Oh, maybe I've been sitting for too long. Am I going to be late for work? That's when those thoughts happen. But the convincing myself to do it has gotten easier. I've gotten better at just doing the thing.
Nice.
You know?
So that's huge. That's a huge shift.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's... I'd say the only reason I think it's important to note that is because I think a lot of people, like for myself, I was like, am I doing this wrong? Like that thought crossed my mind so many times where I was like getting imposter syndrome of like, why am I even doing this? Until I realized like, I'm like, no, I think the skill is just to do the thing that you find fucking annoying.
Yeah.
You know, like, and if I can do those things, then fuck, I'll let myself slide with like a little bit of smoking some joints and a little bit, you know, that's how I justify it to myself, you know, like as long as I'm keeping myself. I had a buddy of mine that like literally he runs his own business. And then anytime he's not working, he's like training like wrestling, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
And he's like very... like reads so much philosophy. Like I don't know if you've met jujitsu nerds before, but they're like a different breed. Like they like reading Miyamoto Musashi and like reading all this philosophy and just like becoming water, because what you pour water into, it always takes the shape of whatever vessels it's in,
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
these like philosophical people.
yeah.
And I'm talking to him one time, and he's like, yeah, and I smoke a pack a day, because otherwise I would just become like a fucking levitating monk. Like, I have to have something that,
That brings me back down to reality.
yeah, some flaw going on. So he's like, otherwise I'd become a levitating monk. Like,
I love that perspective, man.
yeah, he's so funny, man. Is that, I don't know, is that my car or your car?
It's definitely not mine. Yeah, no, I parked down the street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, those things. See, I'm easily distracted.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing.
Very easily distractible.
So my curiosity for you, because now you've got like this, like you're on like this growth journey. You've got this incredible schedule that you follow. Like you force yourself to read and.
Most of the shit is stuff that I like, to be honest with you.
What do you mean?
I mean, like, I have set, like, I consciously, like, a few years ago was like, I wasn't in a spot that I could afford vacations, and I was
Yeah.
envious of people, and I
Yeah.
thought, I want a life where I don't yearn for vacations. And so I kind of filled myself, like, I like working out.
Mm-hmm.
The books that I read a lot of the time, I'm super interested in.
Okay.
So, like, a lot of the things that I do where people are like, hey, you're really disciplined in this and that, and it's like, well, I also like those things.
Yeah.
So I've just filled my life with shit that I like, and so it's like you're just structured doing the things you like. How are you gonna, Then I know when I'm unhappy. It's like, well, obviously it's not the shit that I'm doing because I like it. So
Yeah,
obviously there's
yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Isn't that that's like so important? Is that you're doing the things that you love and you're passionate about?
Yeah. Yeah, I stopped bodybuilding and lifting weights because it fucking bored me. So I was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna just become a student at something else. I'm gonna learn something.
Sick.
So that's when I started jiu-jitsu.
Sick. How long have you been doing that for?
I started at the beginning of the pandemic, so for almost 3.5 years now.
Okay.
3 years.
And how's that experience been?
Unreal, dude.
Yeah.
Just like I said, like following things that interest you, and like I always kind of there's always like the idea of self-defense. I think everyone should just kind of feel comfortable and confident. I never did, even though I was a big muscular guy.
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of knew in the back of my head, if shit goes off, I am kind of just relying on instincts, and my instincts always haven't been that great.
Mm-hmm.
So I should fucking learn at least to have some sort of comfort. Not that you want to be fighting in the streets, because people have weapons and the
Yeah.
world is so unpredictable and
For sure.
it's illegal. But there's, like I think that there's just like a level of confidence and comfortability that just like kind of allows you to, like I said, speak up in times where you're like, I think the person that I would like to be would, kind of speak up in that situation, and I don't really have the confidence to do it. So there was that aspect of it, but also just like the aspect of like, I want to be humbled, man. And there was nothing more humbling than like the first time going and trying. I don't know if you've ever tried a martial art, but
No.
it's like, the uniform, you kind of feel weird and funny, and you're like, I've never worn one of these before. I feel so weird.
Yeah.
And then having some guy in his 60s that has gray hair ragdoll you, and you're like, I thought if I just got mad enough, I'd be able to do this. But
Yeah.
it's like and then I went through an experience of like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do what these guys do.
Okay.
And then you start doing these things, and you're like, I never thought I'd be able to move this way.
No way.
Like, dude, when I first, like, even just like, I don't know if this is just like a self-defeatist or self-limiting belief, like watching UFC and stuff, like I saw people do triangle chokes with their legs, and I was like, I don't think I'm coordinated enough to choke someone with my legs. But it's like, I can confidently say that I could, like
Yeah.
an untrained person, 100%. Like,
Yeah.
like there's, and that's just like I think that feeling, and I don't know if everybody feels that way, or if you felt like that in other sports, if you've played other sports or anything like that, but just like when you're able to, you see someone do something when you first started, and you're like, oh fuck, I could never do that. And then you do your first like between the legs pass, or you do your first like behind the back shot or something like that, and you're like, yo, I did it. Like, are you serious? Like, I tapped someone out.
No way.
I got tapped out for like months without tapping someone. And then the first time you do it, you're like, I did it. did they give it to me? Could I do that a second time? You know, like it's this
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
And so I just got obsessed with it.
Okay. Okay. How often are you fighting now or training?
Training. I'd say I'm in the gym 3 days a week,
Nice.
4 days if I can. It's pretty hard running. Like I hate being late for class. It's really like I
Mm.
feel disrespectful, and so
Mhm.
if I don't get home early enough from work, it's kind of hard. So it's like
Mhm.
only 3-4 times a week, but
Okay.
like I said,
That's a
I'm
lot.
exercising every day.
Yeah. 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 3, 4 times a week is a
It's
lot.
pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, considering your work, like you work 5 days a week.
Yeah, 5-6 days a week.
Yeah. So that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, like I said, because I've found so much structure, I find that if I don't stick to it, I start to feel bad. There's that
Mhm.
like kind of
Mhm.
self-limiting, and again, like it almost becomes addicting, that feeling of like I'm not good enough. What more can I do?
Mhm.
You know?
Mhm.
And it's kind of just been like an endless chase. And then, like I said, in the last year, I kind of was like, oh yeah, my morning routine doesn't have to be for 3 hours long and doing journaling and reading and
Mhm.
meditating and exercising and making a fucking breakfast and doing this and grounding myself, walking around barefoot for 5 minutes. And it's like, I can just pick two things that I
Yeah.
could do every day:
Nice.
exercise and read.
Nice.
You know, like little,
Yeah.
like just the last year of just realizing, like, maybe you don't have to add, maybe like you need to just like chill in certain
Mhm.
areas.
Mhm.
And I don't think that a lot of, I think that if I had tried that tactic before, it wouldn't have worked. I think I had to go through that knee jerk reaction of like no structure, nothing but structure, and then it's kind of like finding this balance. Like, and it sounds so stupid and cliche, but finding the balance,
Yeah.
like.
I don't think it's stupid or cliche at all. I think finding the balance in almost anything in life is so important. You know.
And it's weird too because, like I said, like it's kind of like you go through this and kind of like, at least, sorry, I should speak to my own experience, but
Mm.
I went through this like kind of like I said, I was like kind of like the kind of guy to be like talking about the girls he slept with and the things he did the night before, and then I went to the extreme opposite side of the spectrum of just like, even like if my friends would talk about, I'd be like, dude, I don't fucking drink. That's for fucking losers. Like I
Mm.
literally became a dick. Like I was just
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
and so it was kind of like this. I almost felt like once I had to find myself again. Like it was like, and this has been like the first time in like the last year where like I can hang out with people that, I've just met, like even like yourself. And like, it's like,
Mhm.
I don't have to put on this persona of like, I'm perfect. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do anything. But I also can like stick to my own values of like, well, I don't drink and there's reasons why I don't drink. And I don't have to
Mhm.
reflect that judgment on other people or, like I have my own fucking path. I have my
Mhm.
own issues. And like, that's one of the things I've been trying to remind myself of. But just kind of finding yourself again. Like, for me, that was like one of the things I had to do is like, I felt like I was always putting on a persona,
Mhm.
even when I was in like the party class clown stage of my life.
Mhm.
It was like I was putting on that persona because I was like, if I'm not making people laugh, like, not much else I've got going for me. Like, I kind of
Yeah.
related a lot
Yeah.
to what you were
Yeah.
saying earlier.
Oh yeah.
And then the other side of it was like, well, I have to be this like structured, like fucking Jordan Peterson reading, fucking perfect Jocko Willink type,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was like David Goggins or bust. Like that was it for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And then it was like kind of like I said earlier, like it's like I felt like I was like putting a part of myself away.
Mm.
And it like over the last year has been just trying to be like, I need to do the things that make me, have structure and feel happy and feel like myself.
Mhm.
But I also have to feel like myself.
Yeah.
Like I have to just like also give in, like you were saying, like I have to give in to like that little kid in me that just wants to fucking laugh and feel
Yeah.
safe and okay and like able to be himself.
Yeah.
That's something that I've always struggled with, of like
Yeah.
this, like not always struggling to be myself, but feeling comfortable being myself.
Yeah.
Because I've never been that great at pretending,
Mhm.
but I was always trying to.
Yeah.
And just kind of like, we all have that. You leave your fucking bathroom after you gotten your shower done, you brush your teeth and you're dressed and whatever, you're ready for the day, and you have that version of yourself that you are when you're by yourself. And obviously it's different when you're with other people. Like once you leave here, you're going to get in your car and you'll be like it's maybe you'll think about the things you said, maybe you'll think about the things I said, but there is this kind of sense of like, I'm alone now. I don't have to fucking do this thing where he's like, am I smiling? Am I looking at? Am I listening? You know, like, and I think that we all have that, but there's this kind of like feeling, and I know you know what I'm saying, and I might not be able to put it in words well enough, but like when you're pretending too much and like you're in your own head, and it's just not a great way to live life. And I felt like I was like that for so long, even after I had improved a lot of my, you know, parts of my life in the last like probably 3 or 4 years. There was like the first 2 years of it where I was still pretending around my new circle, quote unquote, because it was like I was still adjusting. And then I would just kind of, like I said, in the last like year and a half, especially in the last year, there's been a lot more kind of, you know, I just through changes in life and through kind of just being a little bit further down the path than I was 4 years ago. It's just like kind of like this, like, oh yeah, these people actually love you, dude. Like you don't have to fucking do this. And like, if in fact, if you want to love yourself, you shouldn't do this. Like you should find this balance of like, you know, just be yourself and just kind of understand that like it comes down to like we were talking about earlier, like abandonment issues of like, am I going to be good enough? And it's funny because I heard this, there's this lyric in this song. It's a silly little song, but there's a line in the song where it says, a man's never alone if he can offer help. And once I kind of realized, especially with like my line of work and my skills with my trade, like I've always had this feeling of like, will I be alone? Like, do you know, like once just to be vulnerable, like it's like, I always think about like when my dad dies, when my mom dies, you know, I love my sisters, but I don't hang out with them that often. And like, she could smarten up and leave me any day. So like, you know, and I've pissed off friends before. So then that you go down these pathways in your mind of like, what if in 20 years I'm alone? What if that happens in 15?
What does alone mean?
I think that like, again, if you were to just not have anyone around you that loved you, or you kind of, I know for myself, I always think like, you know, if I didn't have what I have, if I didn't have these skills, if I didn't have, you know, it's pretty humbling when you don't have a lot of money and when you don't have like certain things that you can help out with, but like, you know, just thinking about like, or do these people really like me, or do they think about me? Would they be there for me if I needed them? And then I just kind of flipped the script and I was like, you know, do I even like me? Do I even, you know, like, am I there when I need it? You know, like those types of things. But just kind of like going through that idea of, or mindset of like, as long as I can help people out, as long as I can, and whatever that looks like. And that's, again, for me, like I think about just genuine interactions with people and smiles. Like that is something that I value a lot. Like it is something that I've took the time to think about. Like if I make the people that I spend time with smile at least probably like 3-4 times every time I see them, I don't think I'll be alone for the rest of my life.
I love that perspective.
You know? And so for me, I was just kind of like, all right, we'll start with that. And then it was just kind of, I'm a firm believer. Like I obviously, like I do home renovations. I'm a carpenter, and I firmly believe that like if you just master one trade, you'll be taken care of. Like if you master one skill set, like you've obviously gone through therapy and counseling, and that's like how you're fine tuning your skill and your ability. But like if you have the skill, if you have an ability to help somebody or just improve the world, like I think that that's one of the biggest like kind of you know, like almost solutions to that kind of identity problem of like abandonment issues. Because you know, like for me at least, the whole like self affirmations and like putting sticky notes on my mirror. Trust me, dude, I did those things.
Mm-hmm.
I told myself every day, you know, you're loved, you're worthy,
Mm-hmm.
you're worthy of love.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't believe those things.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was really hard for me. Like, it was like everyone on social media says, you tell yourself this. Say it's about the words you say to yourself. It's about and it never worked for me. You know, no matter how many times I sat in my fucking mirror or filmed myself or wrote it down in my journal or read books that told me it never worked. And for me, like, the only thing that kind of gave me peace of mind was like, are you actually like making the people around you happy? Like,
Yeah.
do you actually, the same way I was talking about earlier, like thinking about like, how are they going to remember you? Like,
So it's like being in service to others.
it was kind of the opposite. Like, it was kind of like, well, no, being in service to others, but it was kind of like, almost like telling myself and viewing the message enough was never enough for me. It had to actually like manifest.
Yeah.
Like, it had to actually like, am I somebody that helps out? Oh yeah. I can help my friend move. I can offer like they're moving. So I can I have a truck. I can help. I have a trailer. We can do it in one load. Like we fucking, and they're like, really? How much do you want for gas? And you're like, no, dude, I got you. And they're like, really? And you're like, wow. And they thanked me. And like, you leave and you're like, wow, dude, like, I just saved them a little bit of money. We had some good times. Like, you're like, oh, I'm actually useful. I actually do have a purpose. Like,
Okay. And if no one was around, then who would Mark be?
yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know, man. Hopefully, if no one's around, I'm not around that long, dude. Because I think that one of my greatest joys in life, I think every single joy that I have in life is because of other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You value connection. You value connection with the people around you.
yeah,
For sure.
and again, it comes from like I spend a lot of time alone. I never was comfortable doing that before. I was always the type of guy that was like calling chicks at night because I never wanted to be fucking alone.
Oh,
dude.
I was
like,
the same. Yeah.
And so for me, like kind of the morning time, instead of doing it at night, I'm alone in the morning. You know, like that's when I have my couple hours of solitude and quiet. I listen to a bit of music, but for the most part, it's like I'm either watching a little bit of clips or something while I'm on the bike. But that's my alone time. And then other than that, dude, I just love people too much. Like I don't like being alone. There's a reason I have a podcast. I love talking to people.
Yeah. I'm the same way, man. I for the first time in what felt like months, I had a day to myself. And it was like, I was like terrified of that at first. I was like, fuck, like what am I going to do by myself? And then I remembered how much I love spending time alone. But that just, helps me recognize how much I love being around other people. I love connecting with other people. But the question I posed to you, like who is Mark when he's alone? Not necessarily like when you have nobody in your life, but when you have that time where you're like a substantial amount of time by yourself, like then when you're not in service to others, when you're not connecting with others, then who is Mark?
Starving for dopamine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I will, if you were to give me, like for yesterday, for example, if I had pretty much nothing to do, I went to a celebration of life for a couple hours, but like morning, nothing, evening, nothing. And, I will either spend 2 hours working out, folding laundry, reading, doing dishes, vacuuming. Like, I'm not good at being idle. Or I'll spend 2 hours jacking off, smoking weed, scrolling through Instagram. Like, I'll be doing something. So I have to keep myself doing good shit.
Okay.
And that's why I say, like, it's almost like dopamine deprived.
Yeah.
And if I can get my dopamine source, I know I'm like that.
Yeah.
So, like, am I going to get my dopamine sources from ice cream, or am I going to get my dopamine sources from, like, finishing a bike ride and then a bunch of push-ups and be like, fuck yeah, I'm the man? You know, do I want to feel like the man because I just did a fucking nose full of Coke? Or do I want to feel like the man because I just did fucking 300 push-ups?
Yeah.
For me, like, I'll take the push-ups. You know, like, I'd rather... like I said, like, I kind of know how my brain fires, and there's definitely like, I'm not trying to say, oh, that's how I am and that's how I'll always be,
Mm-hmm.
because I know how plastic our brains are.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, we have certain things that we can look at as like curses, but they are blessings as well. And I think that the things that, if it's almost like a tool, and like if you learn how to use that tool well, it's really useful. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to hammer nails with your fucking drill, you're gonna be pissed and wonder why the fuck you're broken and feeling broken all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something I struggled with.
Okay.
Like thinking like, oh, I'm like this way, so I'm fucked.
Yeah.
I'll always be this way.
Yeah.
And not thinking like, oh, I can change this hyperactive, obsessive brain into like, why not become obsessive over something I could make money at?
Mm-hmm.
Why not become obsessive over something that actually makes me feel better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I'll probably have to end up steering in different directions like I have already. But I just, that's the way I look at it right now. It's like, this is kind of how I am. So I'll just try and alter it a little bit to just, if we're going to be charging 100 miles an hour, let's just get some direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's the way I am.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. You've turned into this desire that you have from desiring these negative dopamine hits to something like really positive that now benefits you in your life. And that's
Sometimes it can be like, obviously it's
we're
not
perfect.
like, yeah.
Yeah, we're not perfect by any means, and like even like all of these parts of ourselves are gonna bubble to the surface, like old coping mechanisms, old like limiting beliefs or thoughts about ourselves, right? Like they will always be here, they'll always exist, maybe less than before, but also like when they do show up, similar to what you said, when you start to feel tense in certain situations, you're able to observe it and not actually react, and just offer yourself some compassion when it does show up, and because it'll always be there.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like admitting like you're in the 12-step program, that is step one, right? Like admitting that you have a behavior that's destructive and making your life unmanageable or whatever vocabulary they use. But like I know, like if you follow like a Christian faith, if you follow like any religious, like there's always this kind of like sense of like, even Stoic philosophy, anything, like it's like there's this idea of like just take inventory of like, and not to feel shame of it, but just like understand like, yeah, I'm a broken person, like in some way, like, and that's okay to say, because some people will be like, oh, you shouldn't say that because there's a lot of power behind you. You're like, no, you should probably fucking admit that you have a little bit of fucking problems with your armor.
I love what Jordan Peterson said once, where he's like everyone is capable of being that Nazi soldier in that tower with a sniper sniping on prisoners, right? Like everyone is capable of being put in that situation or being convinced or persuaded.
Look at the last few years, man, the way that people react to world news.
Yeah, right? So it's like we are all capable of being really shitty human beings.
Yeah.
Right? And that's like if we can be aware of the capabilities for ourselves, then we can also turn that into a healthy way of living, rather than like ignoring or denying that there's parts of yourselves that are kind of shitty or toxic or unhealthy. It's like you can turn that into healthiness. Just by being aware of it is being healthy.
Yeah. And it is weird too. Like I know for myself, like I kind of, I used to have a huge fear of flying. And I started to, when I first told my doctor about it, they were just like, have you heard of Ativan? And for a while, that was my strategy. But then I started to realize more and more, like after a lot of work, it was like kind of this, like you were talking about, like this anxiety surrounding like a lack of control. Like I hated, another way I noticed it manifesting, and this took a lot more journaling and meditating on, but like I never liked being the passenger in a vehicle. Like if you and I were to go like, hey, let's go grab dinner, I'd be like, I'll meet you there or I'll pick you up. If you were to be like, hey, I'll pick you up, we'll be like, we'll carpool from my place. Like I'd always have a way to be like, I need to have the keys, I need to like have my stuff in my truck, I need to have my escape route, I have to have like everything, like, and it all stemmed from this like feeling of like I have to have control. I have to have my
Mm.
eject button if I need to leave the situation.
Yeah.
I need to have like, it was like this, like, again, came from control, and just noting that and being like, it's okay to just like forfeit control. Like, you can trust
Mm.
other people. In fact, like, other people are probably better at things than you
Yeah.
are in a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
circumstances. So like,
Yeah.
it's probably actually better and
Yeah.
safer to
Yeah.
forfeit
To
control
let someone else
sometimes.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just like when you name the beast, like that's kind of like a
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson type theme. Like, it's like naming the beast of like, and that's even just what admitting like you're broken is like just admitting like, I have this defect in my
Mm.
characteristics, and like,
Mm.
it doesn't have to be manifesting negatively.
No. No. Yeah. I love that perspective. And again, like it takes a lot of self awareness to recognize like that need for control. How's flying now for you?
I'm good. I like it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, you don't need any medication or
No.
anything.
No.
No way.
Well, I've been like, I was probably the last time I smoked, I did, or last time I flew, I did a bunch of edibles, but
Okay.
I actually look forward to it. Like,
No way.
yeah, I like it now. I like it.
What do you
I
think
went in a
shifted?
helicopter last
No
year
way.
for the first time. I was in a float plane a few weeks ago for the
Sick.
first time. Yeah, dude, I like those little planes actually better, dude.
No
Float
way.
planes, I think, are the best planes.
Why is
I
that?
don't even know why they land planes on concrete. After being in a plane that lands on the water, it
Yeah.
is literally, mind you, the turbulence hits it a little bit harder when you're in a small
Yeah,
plane.
you feel it more.
But landing on the water, dude, is so smooth.
I've never experienced it.
And you think, like, if you're flying over water anyways, you're like, I'd rather crash over water. If an
Yeah,
engine's
yeah,
going to
yeah.
fail, I'd rather it be over water than over
On
trees I
land.
could get
Yeah,
smashed in.
that's true.
So, yeah, I don't even know why we fly over. I guess, I don't know why they land planes on concrete, dude. Float planes are the way to go. I'll tell you that right now. If they could make a way to make, dude, they have it, obviously, but like to land bigger planes on water,
Hmm.
I don't know why it's so much better.
I wonder what the biggest plane that lands on water is.
I don't know. I flew out of the Flying Beaver in Richmond.
Flying Beaver. What's that?
It's the little pub where the float planes go.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Right by the
yeah,
airport.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
if you've had lunch or dinner there, but it's fucking
No, I
awesome.
rode my bike by there once.
Highly recommend
Yeah?
having lunch there sometime, watching the planes. It's pretty sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about wrapping up?
Yeah. I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time, man.
Yeah,
I
likewise,
appreciate
brother.
it. But yeah, flying is fucking sweet now. And that is to answer your question very briefly, it was just kind of like I said, kind of naming that beast
Mm-hmm.
and not and just kind of meditating on the idea of like, yeah, my stomach's gonna drop. Like, and that's just a feeling. You don't have to actually be scared of it. And just kind of I premeditate on things that are gonna make me upset.
Nice.
And I had a good friend of mine that I was talking to about that, and he was like, "Don't you feel like that manifests negativity?" And I'm like, "No, I do. I need to prime myself for things that piss me off or make me
Yeah.
like." We were driving to work, and I'm like, "I know this guy's gonna piss me off today." And he's like, "Why would you say that? Don't you feel like you're manifesting?" I'm like, "No, dude. I'm prepping my brain for this shit because I know he's gonna piss me off. So if once he pisses me off, I can say, "Oh yeah, it's happening."
Yeah.
Like I knew it would happen.
Yeah.
So it was like a foretold event. Like I planned. Like.
And have you had an experience with this guy before, where he pissed
Yeah,
you
it was
off?
like it was a strata complex I got a contract for, and there
Okay.
was one person that lived in the complex that would always just fucking have annoying questions, and it was like, I don't mind if people are asking questions, but when you get a little like, tell me what I'm doing and how to
Yeah.
do my shit, like it's kind of like, get the fuck out of here.
It's crossing a boundary, and yeah, not that you're manifesting something that hasn't happened yet. It's you're taking experiences from the past and prepping yourself for that that thing that's been consistently showing up in your life.
Yeah. And with that customer in particular, I shouldn't say customer because he wasn't the customer, like the strata complex was, but with that like person in particular, there was just a situation where like we kind of got in a disagreement about what was talked about before I had built it. And then he wanted some alterations done. And I was like, I didn't know about that, dude. Like, you should have told me about this before.
Yeah.
And he like put his hand on my back in a way that like a father would to a son or like a coach would to a player. And he's like, you knew about this.
Ooh.
And I was like, not cool with that at all. And I'm like, I was like, yeah, it was, we had a little bit of a conversation where I was like, do not put your hand on me.
Nice.
And like, this is what's happening. And if I have time at the end of finishing your neighbor's decks, I'll come back and we'll sort this out. I'm not going to leave you feeling pissed off, but you're not going to tell me when I'm doing it, and you're not going to touch me.
Good for you.
And like, so just like having that kind of, like, we were driving to work and I'm like, I know he's going to fucking piss me off today. Like, I have to just prep myself for this, because it's like, you know as well as I do, like when you are the face of a business, if you run a business, if you're high up in a business, if you, like, there's a fine line of like, yeah, I don't have to make everybody happy, but like, I do have to be professional. This is what I do. Like, this is my livelihood. So like, it's kind of like, at the end of the day, I know in my heart, one of my morals is like, I don't want to leave my customers feeling like I was one of the guys that fucking cheated them or didn't give them what they wanted. I think about that.
Yeah.
And so like, I might not like this guy and he might piss me off every single time I see him. But in my heart of hearts, like, if he's, you know, he pays his strata pays me, effectively he's paying me. And I want him to know, I want him to be able to say, I might not like that guy, but he fucking did a good job.
Yeah.
At least that,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah,
he's probably thinking the same thing I do about him.
Fair.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want him to at least be like, yeah, he wasn't the most professional. He didn't fucking speak to me the way I liked. He didn't do it the way I liked it, but he fucking did a good job.
Yeah.
So
and what I appreciate as well is like, you value doing the best that you can at what you do for work, and you stand up for yourself at the same time. So like, again, going back to like self-responsibility, like, he might not like the way you stood up for yourself, but you were responsible in how you showed up for yourself, right? In the work that you do and the words that you say and what you value. And that's huge, man.
Yeah, the guy I was working with was kind of stunned, and I was like, I just don't think that guy's been told no, let alone by a man that's like 20 years his younger, or his junior. And I was like, it was probably uncomfortable for him, but it was uncomfortable for me, and it had to be said. Like,
yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, we're not here to be friends. I'm just here to build this fucking thing for him.
Yeah.
So as long as I can leave, like, I didn't want to, and this is what I thought afterwards, is like, I don't want to let someone else's behaviors, like, I don't want him to be able to show people pictures and be like, oh, look at this fucking jack off who did this job. Like, I want him to have to be like, yeah, he did a good job.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy, but he did a good job.
Yeah,
like, undeniable.
Yeah,
like,
it, fucking hate him, but God, that work is good.
Yeah. So like, it's like, he'll probably still refer me because, like, you know, like, that's the way that I looked at it. But out of respect for your time, brother, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, bro. What yeah, it was a nice chat.
Shout out all your stuff. Your Instagram handle and everything will be in the description. But if you have anything that we didn't talk about that you want to shout out, or
just for, because I can imagine the majority of your viewers are men. So I work almost solely with men, one-on-one. So you can find me at my website, kevinyarnell.com, KEVINYARNELL.com, or you can find
it'll
me
be in the description. I'll put your Instagram handle, your website, everything.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome, man.
Beautiful. Well,
thanks, brother.
Much love. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for bearing with us. Have a good one, man.